Midnight on Earth podcast with your host, Jake Weaver. Engineered by Cedric Swan. Hey everybody, we are back with another episode of Midnight on Earth. I'm your host, Jake Weaver, and we are here to bring you more knowledge, more light, and more love, and more incredible guests. Today we have Dr. Alex Ling on the show, and we're going to talk about the Mexican zone of silence, the power of water, water's blueprint. There's so much going on there. We're going to talk to him about this. It's going to blow your mind, but we're going to talk to him in just a second. First, I need you to do something for me. Follow me on Instagram at midnight_on_earth. That is the address. You can follow me there. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you go to get your podcasts, click that button that connects us so you know exactly what's going on. When people come on with incredibly powerful information, you get that notification to your device or wherever you get that. And lastly, tell a friend, tell someone that you know that loves these type of podcasts. It's good information. It's powerful. You know what we're doing here. Bring those people that need it here. midnightonearth.com. Okay, so we're going to talk to Dr. Ling in just a second, but of course we have to read his bio. So here we go. Dr. Alex Ling is a multidimensional professional, a 20-year expert in functional medicine, a sculptor, a researcher in megalithic sites, and the founder of the healing water company Aquan. His holistic approach to health emphasizes lifestyle and diet through self-awareness and spiritual practices. Beyond medicine, Dr. Ling has a deep passion for art, particularly stone sculpting, and has a successful sculpture gallery in Glastonbury, England. Driven by curiosity, Dr. Ling explores ancient stone sites and water sources worldwide. His fascination with megalithic sites continues. He founded a group dedicated to preserving and restoring ancient wells, springs, and waterways, and is the driving force behind the natural healing water company Aquan. He also continues his research into the sacred elements of gold, frankincense, and myrrh, and continues his practice in functional medicine. And he's here with us today. Hello, Dr. Alex Ling.
Hello. Hi, Jake.
Thank you so much for joining us. I super appreciate you being here.
Yeah, thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to this show. Thank you so much.
So I'm fascinated by this. You found some sort of connection to these megalithic sites and the water that surrounds these sites, and then water itself. Can you tell me what first prompted you to dive into this type of research?
Yes, it came actually from my background as a sculptor. So whenever I was working with stone, especially actually the granite stone, I stumbled over, of course, if people out there who know about stone, there are stress lines within the stone and certain air pockets and water pockets. So I was always very interested in the structure of the stone. And I always wondered how much information can be stored in such a stone, just regarding the ancient sites or the stone circles, the megalithic sites like Stonehenge. And I know in archaeology there are certain ways of recording some frequencies. So I spoke to a sound technician who's my friend in Cornwall in the UK, and we came up with an idea to record a sound which we would send into a stone which is from a megalithic site, a stone circle, in the Penwith Peninsula in Cornwall. And it's the Merry Maidens. There are 19 standing stones in a circle. And It's a beautiful site anyway. Everybody should go and have a look. So then we picked a stone, which was number 16. And then we conducted an experiment with the stone. So we decided to search for frequency. And this frequency was not very easy to find because we tried numerous trials to send the sound through the stone, recorded it from the other side, and nothing really happened. And then I thought, okay, let's just dig a little bit deeper. So I was researching the sound of the earth and the frequencies, like the Schumann resonance. And I also came across the whale sounds. And I connected those two, and I found that they're very similar frequencies. And then through a coincidence, I was picking up on a message from a friend who said, hey, have you seen this experiment NASA was just conducting? They recorded the Earth out of space, in outer space, and then they came to the conclusion that it was a note, a sound, C4, which is a lower key C4, very often associated with an ancient instrument, the flute. And instantaneously, it caught my attention. So I used the C4 note to play this into the stone. And usually it takes only 0.2 milliseconds to travel through a stone of the width of 1 meter from one end to another. So it's the same speed as when I'm talking to you and you can instantaneously hear my voice. So it's the same kind of speed. And what we did then is we discovered that the first sound we sent through and the frequencies we used to excite the stone, we discovered that it would take not just 0.2 milliseconds to travel through the stone. It actually took 1.2 seconds, and in a second experiment, 1.9 seconds.
Interesting. So something was causing a buffer. There was something like buffering the sound.
Absolutely. So, and of course, coming from a scientific point of view, I wanted to know what is going on and where the information is going. And not only that it was a delay in the signal coming through, but also the signal, the original signal we sent into the stone was actually longer than what the original signal was we used to do the experiment. So that was another thing. It was changed. And we cut out, of course, all possibilities of any disturbance. And we repeated the experiments at least 10 times. And we always had the same results. So then I knew that there is information within the stone, within the granite. And that is very easy to explain because most of the stones contain some rock crystals. And especially the granite has crystal pockets. And within these crystal pockets are tiniest amounts of water in form of water vapor. Of course, not like liquid water. And as soon as you open up these kind of pockets, it would just evaporate. But it is enough to, and water does have a memory, of course, as we look, for example, to the work of Dr. Emoto, which was very successful in recording these events, frozen ice, and he took all the images and he spoke words to the water, to imprint the water.
Yes, very famous experiment.
Exactly. So we took it literally a little bit further, and we then decided to investigate the water. And as you pointed out already, that most of the ancient sites, if it is megalithic sites, stone circles, pyramids, especially pyramids, have all water sources either surrounding the sites or going beneath the sites. And water is, of course, it's a conductor. And in ancient times, the ancient people would be what happens with the water when it runs under the ancient sites is there's very often a coding within these ancient waterways. And I found out that when I investigated, especially the sites in Turkey and in Iran and other areas, that to the times of King Solomon, they would imprint the water with certain energetic patterns. And that's known, for example, as the keys of Solomon, which are sigils and being used for magical praxis. So these sigils would be stored within the water sources and would imprint the waters in an ongoing basis. So that water was literally manipulated in ancient times.
So how is it being imprinted? I mean, you're noticing that there's something in the stones, and you're saying that this is happening in ancient times. They knew this and they had this as a technology, but what were they doing to imprint it specifically? Were they using psychic energy, some form of electrolysis? What do you think about that?
Okay, I have to explain that there was a law which came out previously to King Solomon. The Canaanites, actually, they introduced a law to their to all the people who they were controlling, literally, and so they forbidden all the people to drink from the living waters, and living water, if we have access to it, has an enormous benefit to us. It not only prevents inflammation and diseases within our body, but also it connects us literally to our spiritual abilities. So that's why the water has been targeted, even in ancient times, massively, and they would only be allowed to drink water from the cisterns, which have been created especially in the Far East. Israel, Mount Megiddo is another area which was heavily imprinted by codings. So, and the codings would be created to literally, I would say, control the people in an easier way, because so long people had this connection to nature, to water, to their own spiritual abilities, they would be not so controllable.
Right.
And that was a knowledge which was going through all the kingdoms in the Far East and the Middle East, especially in the area of Megiddo, which is the Levante Peninsula. And as we know, this area specifically at this point is completely, it's a crisis area. So we have, of course, conflict in Israel at this point, between Israel and Palestine. So, and in Megiddo, it is impossible to access, for example, Megiddo is a mount. To explain that very shortly, Megiddo is translated means Armageddon.
Right.
And this mountain is consisting of 27 layers, which are created by civilizations. Then it collapsed, it was rebuilt, and so on. And within the center of Megiddo, of Mount Megiddo, is an entrance to a tunnel, and you go down inside the mount, all the way down until you come to a spring. And this spring is of great importance when it comes to the energetic pattern, which will still fuel even today the original pattern they have implanted into the water, which was coming actually from King Solomon. And this was done so that the warlords could maintain their powers and influence the people by letting them drink this manipulated water through the cistern.
Oh my God. So you're saying even in ancient times, they were using water as a control mechanism, separating the life, the activating water from the common people and giving them probably dirty, tainted water with God knows what at the time, probably not chemicals, of course, but just some other thing. And then I just want to understand, though, how are they imprinting it with something negative, and how do they remove the life-giving imprint?
Okay, that was done through sacrificial practices.
Really?
And there are a lot of texts which I came across, and I will publish it in my book later on, where these ancient texts describe the practice of using human blood to imprint the water.
Oh my God.
So which is not a very nice thing. But water doesn't know any better. Water is not, it's like a child. It just takes on whatever you put into the water. So it could be a good frequency, a bad frequency. And the point is also because of these ceremonial objects, because that's what they use, for example, in Mexico underneath the pyramids. There are a lot of pyramids which have the ceremonial artifacts within the waters, so to imprint the water as well. And it's done as a practice which has been done all over the world. So, and we don't know much about it. Just of late, we have found that some of the pyramids actually have mercury underneath within these water sources. And mercury, of course, it's liquid as well. And that has been done just in case, and in many cases that was so. The water would disappear, would dry up, and then they would still have the mercury in place to imprint this energetic point with these frequencies. There is a lot of things which you can find if you study ancient history. And my father was an art collector, so he was traveling around the world, and he was very much connected to archaeologists and all sorts of people who had this kind of knowledge. And so some of my research is based on his findings as well. And so coming back to Megiddo, the problem in Megiddo is that the spring is not accessible. It has been sealed off a number of years back, and a big stone boulder is put in place so that nobody can access the spring. And I understood that it's done so nobody can change the frequency of the water, because these sigils are still in place.
Oh my God. Wow. So the sigil itself creates the frequency within the water, the symbol. They put it on metal, they put it on rock or something. That, or do they psychically imprint it, or is it all of the above?
I think in the case of Megiddo, physical sigils have been put into place.
Wow.
Where they are, we don't know for sure, because we have only some archaeologists who have witnessed that when they investigated the tunnel with a camera. But we planned actually to go back a few months ago to change the sigils, and you can physically remove those, but you still have to retrain the water, because the water would still use the same frequency.
Wow.
So and that's what we're doing with a group of people who are healers and all sorts of different energy workers who wanted to come with us from both sides, actually, Palestine and from Israel, to make a point and to end this frequency once and for all, so that this conflict would stop. But then, unfortunately, it wasn't safe enough to travel into that part of the world, because it started to, the crisis was just getting too big. So we still want to do this. I was just talking to someone yesterday, and I said, a friend who is in Israel, and she was telling me that the situation is not great. So, and they're holding the space with all the love and intention they have. So it's still on the cards. So we definitely going to do this, but we might have to wait for the right window because of safety reasons.
Yes, of course. And you discovered, is what you're saying, that water has a consciousness. It's almost like a subconscious, like a child's consciousness. It takes on the frequency that you give it. There's ancient cultures using things like sigils and other things to supercharge the water with psychic, ethereal energy, angelic energy, life energy. And then there's controlling forces that are poisoning the water by giving it to the people in a way that's chemically treated, dirty, and it's destructive. And the programming within the water is destructive. And somehow all of this ties into the megalithic sites around the world. People knew about this, ancient cultures knew about this, and they set up these structures to maybe set these frequencies. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, it looks very much like that, because the indigenous people going back, again, at least 2,000-3,000 years ago, were very much connected to the water. We shouldn't forget that. There are still tribes, indigenous people alive today, which are descendants of the people who worked with water extremely closely. Like, for example, the Eretillas. The Eretillas are a group of indigenous people who used to live on the plains of the desert within the Linda Vista area. And it's part of the zone of silence. It's just on the edge of the zone of silence in Mexico. And I studied this particular area quite substantially just because there are a lot of rock carvings which support these theories as well. Many of them bear star maps which are connected to the Pleiades, for example. And yes, so the whole area is a UFO hotspot as well. So many people go there to witness some sightings. And we took also a blueprint of the sand, so that can be done as well. If you use a local spring, and then you can use material like the sand to extract the memory which is embedded in that material.
Really? That's incredible. And then how do you translate that? Like, you were using sound earlier. Were you able to distinguish certain sound patterns that were specific to the rocks?
Yes, in Cornwall, we conducted a lot of different experiments, and we could see that every megalithic site had its own pattern, its own sound. So, and then I already was on the way to extracting a blueprint of the waters, and seeing if there is some form of a visual information which we could translate. So what we did is we just simply went to start with some ordinary springs or streams, any kind of water source. And we took a sample and we used a Petri dish. We fast froze the water on a cold plate, and then we could photograph the emerging pattern, which was in the most beautiful coloration you can imagine. And from this coloration, slowly it started to build something which is almost like a photographic image. And we have repeated these here in Mexico. I'm here for the last 3 months, traveling all over Mexico and collecting samples of water to extract the blueprint. And our results are mind-blowing.
Really?
Something I never expected that. So coming back to the Eretillas, so these indigenous people, they knew, for example, they called the water cosmic water or cosmic ocean, because they knew that the water originated from space. It didn't come from Earth.
Oh my God.
So their relationship to the Earth, to the sky, and so all the pyramids are dedicated to the Earth and the sky. And very often, for example, the pyramids in Mexico have a courtyard which would have been filled with water. And so the shaman would stand in the center of the courtyard. And if you use your voice, for example, because it has a specific acoustic, you can very often go to a site and you can clap in your
Yes.
hands, and you can hear the echo coming from all four sides. So, and that would have created a pattern on the water, which is called sematics. And these sematics have a specific pattern, which then relates to the frequencies. So what we did is we just took the waters of the springs, fast froze it, and then we extracted the blueprint. I wish I would have been there a few thousand years back when these shamans would stand in the water so I could quickly pick up a sample. So that would be incredible. But so this information is still within some of the particles, of course, of the pyramids as well, because the water was a big part of the pyramids. And not to forget, of course, many of these structures still, even in Egypt, have water underneath. And so we're trying to extract as many blueprints as possible to create a network of blueprints telling the story, because each water source has its own picture, its own story, its own memory, its own information. And also there is something which is called the Song of Water, which is very much known to the indigenous people. They knew that each water source has its own language, a bit like people who live in a country and they come from different parts of the country and have a different dialect. So, and the waters have pretty much the same pattern. It's a communication pattern. And there was also in ancient times a language which was connected to water. I have a linguist friend in Germany, and he is a genius. And he has researched all the old river names, and he came to the conclusion that there was a completely separate language, totally unknown to us, which was connected to water.
Oh my God. So people have understood the reverence of water, the different blueprints. And what are you seeing though? You're getting these blueprints. You've collected so many. What is it telling you?
Yes, we have all sorts of different images. Some are actually almost a little bit humorous as well. So we had, for example, someone going to collect some water from the laguna here in Bacala. So he had the idea to dive down into the lagoon and then get a bit of water, which we collect always in a form of a test tube. And he filled up the tube while he was diving. And then he came up and handed me the tube, and then we analyzed the water. And it was incredible. There was an image of a person in the water, and all the colors, all the rainbow colors came towards him as he was collecting the water. And that image was frozen in the water. Incredible.
Oh my God. So there is a consciousness there, and you're able to interpret it and then visualize it. And I also just briefly want to get back to the cosmic water. So that indigenous tribe, they had water which they believe came from a different planet, we could say different galaxy, and it had a blueprint that then stayed with the water that was there, and they called that the cosmic water. Is that correct?
Yes, it didn't come from a different planet, but it did come from a celestial body, which is called a quasar. Oh. And a quasar always coincides next to a black hole for some reason. There's very little known about these quasars. But we do know that they consist of a huge amount of water vapor. In fact, there's one outside our galaxy which is containing about 140 trillion times the waters of all our oceans combined. So that's a massive amount of water. And some scientists are slightly leaning towards the idea, and so am I, that when a galaxy is born, it will be born through the quasar and picking up literally in this birthing process, if you like, the water, most of the water.
That's incredible. So this quasar then is bringing this water vapor to this planet, which then instills the blueprint in these certain water sources. Yes,
so that is a theory so far, but it's a possibility. And that would also explain that our ancestors or all the indigenous people literally said that the water is coming from the cosmos. So that would make sense.
So I want to know, though, from your perspective, the world's water supply, what people drink on a daily basis, the bottled water, the tap water, what kind of blueprint does that have? I'm sure it's very distorted if there's any information there at all. Is it just totally devoid of that consciousness, or what is going on there?
Yeah, that's something I get asked a lot because of the tap water which people consume. And many people, of course, have all sorts of different filters. And there is one way of getting rid of all the toxins inside the water is if you are resetting the water, which is like restructuring the water. And there are some devices, for example, Victor Schauberger, who was very famous for his work. He was actually a logger working in the forest, and then he needed to transport the logs of the forest in a specific way in some areas where the water would not usually transport the logs into the hills. So he came up with the idea to use the natural structure of the water, the momentum, the motion of the water, to create a certain pattern within this transportation of the logs, and he solved the problem. Then later on, he found that we are also, as humans, very much, unfortunately, we don't have enough access to living water, of course, but that we can restructure the water and improve our health. And so from there, I started to look very deeply into tap water, for example. So we took some blueprints of the waters, of different tap waters in different areas.
Oh my God, yes, this is what I want to know about.
Yeah, so it's not a pretty sight. So the water was not structured or didn't give much of information because it was like a gray zone. The coloration was very minimal. And so there was no regular pattern within those crystals which would form while we were freezing it. So it was a really smudgy, kind of unpleasant picture to see. The worst, however, is microwaved water.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So I always say to people, please don't put any food, because within food, of course, as well, we have vegetables going in. And within vegetables, of course, there's structured water. And if you put it in a microwave, you destroy it immediately, losing all the nutritional value of your food. So and so that was the worst part. So that was almost a blackened mass, which was barely identifiable as water. But then what we did also is we talked to the water. We followed Dr. Emoto's footsteps, and we enhanced the water with positive energy. And that's something which does have an effect. It didn't clear completely the water into a beautiful pattern, but it improved it at least 50%.
Wow.
So
really?
Yeah, so yes.
That's incredible. So, you used some of Dr. Emoto's techniques to take that water and restructure it psychically by imprinting it on there at least 50%, you're saying?
Yes.
Wow.
So through our emotional, and we are, of course, vessels of water. We shouldn't forget that.
Yes.
So, and we have a great connection to everything around us, which is created from water and consists out of water or has water inside. So we have an automatic and natural communication tool, because water is very much communicating through frequencies, and frequencies are all around us. I mean, even now we are surrounded, unfortunately, by a lot of technology, and that technology has an impact on us as well. So it's always good to go into nature, take your shoes off and ground yourself and get rid of these toxins, but also get sure that you have structured water, which will improve your health quite dramatically. Too many people are drinking any kind of liquids which have a huge amount of sugar or caffeine or whatever inside, which is so bad for your health. And many people forget actually to drink water. You can literally, if you have, for example, arthritis, improve your condition within, I say, 2 weeks if you would just cut out sugar and some other things like bread, white bread, and you would just drink good source of water. It would immediately have an impact on you.
Oh, yes, I totally agree. I am gluten-free myself, and I'm also sugar-free. And I try to drink electrolyte water. I put a little bit of salt in my water to electrolyze it. But living water is something that's even a far step above that. You can restructure that, but it's not what millions and billions of people on this planet are getting right now. Is this what your company Aquan is working with?
Yes, that's exactly my research over 14 years into water and also frankincense, myrrh, and gold. I know that sounds like the Bible. And it is really a big indicator that these 3 supplements are extremely important to us. And I always wondered, why is it mentioned in the Bible? Why is such a big deal with frankincense, myrrh, and gold? So when I used it, actually, I have to shortly explain that.
Sure.
Of course, I also work as a doctor, not as much anymore. I do a lot of more research now. But most of my patients would have, unfortunately, would have cancer. And so I specialized on creating an environment within their bodies which would not only prevent any more cell mutation, but also would take care of all the inflammation within their body, so that cell mutation could be avoided. And frankincense is a huge anti-inflammatory. It's known for a very long time. By taking frankincense as a etheric oil or in its natural form as a resin is good, but the bioavailability is very minimal. And the same counts for myrrh. So I was trying to find a way of making these resins water soluble. And after a couple of years, I managed to do that. And then we added monoatomic gold to it, which is minerals which are literally harvested from the seawater. And so this is a bridging tool between the resins, the myrrh and the frankincense. Myrrh is actually naturally used in cancer research as well. They use it too, because naturally it has components inside which are toxic to cancer cells. So it's like a Pac-Man in your system if you take it, and it goes through your body and it will target the cancer cells.
Wow. Frankincense and myrrh and monoatomic gold.
The gold is, as I said, it's a bridging tool.
Oh, okay. Okay. So it's like the circuit.
Yes. Yes, that's right. So, and it really builds an incredible structure, which also will get rid of a lot of your toxins within your system. But it also gets sure that it targets the right areas, and it stabilizes the frankincense and the myrrh, and it acts as a prevention. As I said, it will take care of the inflammation, but also targets the mutated cells.
Interesting. So wow. I've never heard this before. I'm sorry. This is like new information to me. And it sounds like you're treating patients with this.
Yes, I have done over the last 14 years, actually. And I have used frankincense and myrrh previously. And I have used it in CBD products. So they're cannabinoids, and is very beneficial, especially for people who go through chemotherapy and all sorts of radiation therapy. Yes. So, and I had a huge fight on my hands first with the oncologists who who were literally trying to shut me down. But now we are almost friendly, and because I can see the results, and now there are no limits now to getting the patients to actually take myrrh and frankincense and gold. Even in cancer research now, they are pointing out that myrrh is most likely, unfortunately, they're going to synthesize it, which is not the best way, really. You always lose a lot of the good stuff.
Well, it's the plant spirit as well. It's all of it.
Yeah, exactly. So, and it's going to be different, but there are trials, I think, already happening where they use synthesized myrrh in chemotherapy.
Interesting.
So, yeah, I know.
It's mind blowing. So, you're blowing my mind right now. This is really good information.
So we had really good results. And so from there, I thought, okay, what other properties are within frankincense and myrrh? So I looked into all sorts of different things, from purification to using it for cleansing and using it internally, especially. So, and then I came across some texts which described myrrh, frankincense, and gold as most likely to be the fifth element. I'm not that knowledgeable in alchemy, but I knew it was a big deal. So when I researched it further, we actually discovered, and we had a lot of trials. I have a lot of good friends who would come forward and say, I try Aquan first. I see what happens. So we had clinical trials for a while. And so we needed to be sure that what we are doing is correct. Also, the water which we restructured, we have devices which we are using to do exactly that. Even so our water is spring water, we're still restructuring it. We also have two huge magnetic fields where we are charging the water particles, molecules, before we adding actually the myrrh, frankincense, and gold. So it's quite a process, and it looks a little bit a sci-fi lab because we're also using frequencies, color frequencies, and sound frequencies to go inside the water. And as I described, I managed to make the frankincense and myrrh water soluble, and then we're adding it to a further tank, and then it will go into glass vessels and will be stored and exposed to the frequencies, and then we are going to bottle it, and it's ready to be sold.
Wow, so this is incredible. Yes. Is this on the market right now?
Yes, it is. Yeah.
Oh my goodness. I'm anxious to try it. This is huge because so many people have talked about how, in general, our water is conscious, it's spiritual, but the water that we're taking in is distorted. It's unhealthy. It's not regenerating us in a way that hits us on every dimension, not just the physical. We might feel kind of hydrated, but water is so much more than that, as you're saying. And then let's segue into the Mexican zone of silence. This is something you were exploring, and then you learned about this area while you were creating this, while you were doing this.
Yes, so the zone of silence is a specific area within the region of Mapimi. It's stretching just roughly 51 kilometers across. So it's not like a huge area, but it's big enough to keep you busy for a while. So it's also a very unforgiving area. It's extremely hot, and it's very dry and very dusty. The sand, there's constantly sandstorms as well. So, but we have formed a very close relationship to a village which is called Ejido La Flor, which is just in the zone of silence. And it only consists of 15 people, but these people are very, very knowledgeable. These are the people who are the descendants of the Iritillas. They are now called Laguneros. So, and their knowledge about water and the land inside the desert is incredible. So they're using all the plants for their medicine. They barely have any Wi-Fi there, if at all. So technology hasn't really moved into that area, which is actually a good thing. But also, the zone of silence has a huge magnetic field activity. So, and that means that all the radio signals, you just literally can't get a signal in there. And that is caused by a mountain which is right in the center of the zone. And it's called San Ignacio. It's 1,440 meters high, quite a strange number. To have access, you need to have some form of academic education. So I applied to get access to the laboratory, which is very close to the mountain. And finally, I got some permission to travel to the zone. Because it's privately owned, as I mentioned, the mountain is owned by some American guy. Nobody knows who he is.
Interesting. That's strange.
Yes, it's quite strange. And some people who have had this information who he is have been sworn to silence. So it's some strange thing going on there. So we went to the laboratory, and then we stayed in the center of the zone of silence. I took a team, and then we did a lot of research because the plants, because it's a biosphere reserve. So you can study, you can go there if you're lucky to get a space there, and then you can study the plants, because the plants, the cacti and all this are exceptionally large, but also extremely colorful. And it also has an impact on the insects and in general on the animals which are in the zone of silence. So they seem to also be larger, slightly larger than usual.
Interesting.
Yes, yeah. So that's because it's a well-known fact. Also, the meteorites, for example, there's one specific part of the zone of silence where you can just go and you can pick up meteorites every 2 meters.
Wow, they're attracted to that area. They're being pulled in from space, literally.
Yes, that's right. So, and that was also the case with a rocket which crashed in the zone in 1960. So there was a huge, or is still a huge conspiracy surrounding this rocket.
Really?
And
tell me about it, please.
Yes, yeah. So I don't know exactly all the ins and outs of the rocket. I just recently looked into that. But we have been at the crash site, and there's nothing left, of course. But the military instantaneously, what they did is they sealed off the whole area of the crash site when the rocket crashed into the zone of silence. And they had some people being shipped in who are specialists from America. They were working together with NASA and all sorts. And so they actually put also a railway track into the zone of silence. They built a runway for a plane to come in. And they sealed off the whole area. I think it took 9 months to take all the debris of the rocket out of the zone of silence. However, we've spoken to quite a few people who live in the zone of silence, and we mentioned the rocket, and they took us to the crash site too. And they said it wasn't a rocket.
Really? That it could have been an extraterrestrial craft?
That's what it sounds like. So there's a lot of people who believe that the zone of silence is some form of a portal, and that San Ignacio is right in the center of it.
Of course. Yeah. That totally makes sense. It's one of Earth's great vortexes, and it's probably disorienting for those crafts that seem to use perhaps Mercury as their engine, like a Mercury vortex engine, or magnetics to gauge distance and things like that. And they crash into the Earth, even though they're highly advanced, they're still not flawless. They crash into the Earth, and then they use this rocket as a cover story.
Yes, that's what it looks like.
Oh my God.
And we also had witness accounts where people literally told us that to be very fair, most of the people in the zone of silence say extraterrestrials, yes, they live amongst us.
Of course.
So they are really, really open-minded to these ideas. But also they have witnessed some quite tall people or extraterrestrials walking and helping in the desert people who get stuck. So there were 2 occasions of people being stuck, because when it rains in the zone of silence, very, very quickly can run into trouble because the tracks are impassable and the ground is like clayish. It's like almost clay-like, so your tires get caked up really, really quickly, and then you get stuck. So and some tourists apparently a few years back got stuck in a zone of silence, and then these 2 very tall beings came and helped them with their car, and then they disappeared again, and they were wearing some form of yellow clothing.
Oh my God.
So yes, but it is a very, very known story. And someone else from the biosphere, from the laboratory, for example, also had an encounter, and I spoke to him personally, and it sounded very credible. So yeah, something is going on there, that's for sure. I mean, we have seen, when we went into the zone of silence in the night, we have seen numerous lights dancing in the sky, which was definitely not a plane or a helicopter or anything like that. It was definitely what I would describe as a UFO. Even on the ground, something was approaching us, and we felt a little bit uneasy with that one. But everything was good. So we took actually footage of it, and on the footage, when we looked at it, it was like a disc, an orb, which was spinning in different colors, and it came towards us. It looked first, some people would come towards us with some torches, but then I said, no, it's too high up the ground for a torch. And then we filmed it, and then we saw on the film that it was definitely not a torch.
So it sounds like it's a UFO hotspot. I've been to a few around the world myself, and when you see those things, it's mind-blowing. One thing I want to point out, though, is that you said that insects are bigger, plants are growing bigger, there's a stronger magnetic field, and it makes me think about the planet's history, Earth's history, according to conventional science. They say that in the past, we had a far stronger magnetic field. And then you think about the legends of giants and, of course, the dinosaurs. There was something about the magnetic field itself that was causing the matter to grow faster and bigger and larger. It was charging. It was supercharging it.
Yeah. I totally agree with that. I know that our magnetic field is not as strong anymore because we are actually within a change of the polar shift.
Right.
So many people think it's kind of a really sudden thing, and it can be, but I don't think it's going to happen. So I think it's a very lengthy process. And we are not the only planet in our solar system. In fact, all our planets within our solar system are doing exactly the same thing, even the sun. And the sun at the moment is, of course, going through a solar maximum, which is happening every 11 years. And I studied that because in Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, I came across quite an interesting theory that people would say, okay, it wasn't actually an asteroid or something which wiped out the dinosaurs. And then I spoke to some scientists who are from Norway who have actually literally just last year came across some fossilized wood which they investigated, and they could see that just around 14,000 years there was a huge spike in carbon. And that coincided with a solar maximum. So there is now the belief that the ice melt, for example, was caused by a huge event which was caused by the sun.
Oh, like a huge solar flare, or such a giant coronal mass ejection that literally carbonized the atmosphere and killed the dinosaurs.
Yes, it could have happened. Yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
But we are influenced by that because we all have magnetic fields. I mean, we all have that. People call it an aura, whatever that is. We all have a personal magnetic field. We're all influenced by that. I know that when the solar flares were going full strength recently, it felt very powerful and cosmic when you went outside at night. And it's all connected to that. What do you think about that?
I totally agree. I know exactly the date. It was the 10th of May. And when we had auroras showing on not just the northern hemisphere, but also the southern hemisphere. And that's actually a very rare event. And I was reading up about it in ancient scripts. And this event, which I just described 14,000 years ago, had also on both hemispheres, it was detectable that these auroras were visible because we were traveling through different countries and cross-examined the ancient text, and we came to the conclusion that it was a very similar event. Also stated on, for example, the Göbekli Tepe, which is this beautiful site.
Yes, of course, beautiful place.
Site, in Turkey. And there is the pillar 43, which is showing actually a phoenix who's holding on his left wing a sphere. And I always said, it looks like the sun. And it would kind of match, with the phoenix, because coming from the fire and connecting to the sun. So it's just because they wouldn't kind of be very complicated in their carvings. They would give us information which is very logical. So I had a talk actually in 2004 with Klaus Schmidt, who was a leading archaeologist in Göbekli Tepe. And I just ran it by and I said, could it be? And he said, it could be. But he was more at the point trying to protect the site, because later on, before his death, actually, he tried to prevent that some of the tunnel systems which are underneath Göbekli Tepe and going through towards all the other tepes, he wanted to investigate it, and the Turkish government unfortunately has pulled the plug, and they poured concrete into this. That's happening quite a lot in archaeology. As soon as there's some evidence of something which is not matching with our given history.
Yes, that narrative.
So they do something to prevent that it comes out, of course. The same with the river Tigris. Just lately, they have seen all these new caves emerging because the water levels are so low. And some of the caves had these incredible sounds, like frequencies, which were conducted by the water and by the rock. And again, there was no research done, and they closed the caves, and they said there's no access being permitted. So it's always happening that way.
That's really interesting. That opposing force, whatever it is that wants to stifle humanity's evolution and unlock the true history of humanity, which probably goes back hundreds of millions of years. If you believe Michael Cremo and if you've read Forbidden Archaeology, you know that there's so much evidence. But do you think, Alex, that the solar flares can imprint a blueprint on a planet's water supply?
Absolutely. And why I know that? Because we had just the solar eclipse. It's not a solar flare, it's different, but it's still
coming from the sun.
Energy from the sun.
Yes.
So what we did is we took a water sample into the zone of silence, because I was there with a team at this point on the 8th of April. And that was information which came from Turkey. Actually, there's a lot of history which is repeated in Mexico as well. So that's why we ended up in the zone of silence, and we took a water sample with us. And we had some beautiful people with us who were very spiritual and very positive, because we wanted to set a point. We had a huge project which was called the hum. And the hum, again, is like the C4 note. It's the sound of the planet. It communicates very well with the water. So we had 3 million people around the planet taking part in this.
Wow.
And so we were all humming at this point of the eclipse, which was a beautiful event.
Wow.
And yes, and thank you to of course also my partner Vivian, who conducted it in Glastonbury at the point, and had a huge number of people following and coming to do the hum. So
that's incredible. Great work, by the way. That's mind-blowing.
Yes, I like positive stories. So we like to have solutions. We know all the bad stuff is going on, but we need some good stuff.
Of course.
And what we did is we had the water sample with us in the center of our circle. And when the eclipse occurred, it was exposed to the eclipse, and it was an amazing event anyway. And then what I did after was I extracted the blueprint from the water. And what was showing was the first time that we had a direct image of the situation. It was like a bird's eye view from the dunes in that moment of the total eclipse. It was amazing. And we heard actually an eagle above our heads, and there was no bird. It was just a sound, and we even recorded it. And it showed on the image of the water, there was this beautiful bird spreading out its wings, holding this bird's eye view in its wings.
Wow.
I mean, it was just beautiful.
Do you have pictures of this on your website?
Yes.
Are there uploads? These are all on the website.
No, they're not yet on the website.
But they're coming.
Actually, they will be on the website very shortly, within the next few days. Because what we're going to do is, we had an incredible idea, which I think is a really beautiful way of dealing with our connection, to re-establish our connection with water. And I collected, as I said, hundreds of different water samples from Mexico over the last 3 months. And I would like to take that further and really go global with it. And to do that, I would need the help of people to actually be part of it. And what we came up with is that you can purchase a kit which has a test tube. It has a free envelope to ship the sample into our office. And then what we're going to do is we're extracting those blueprints, and then we're sending these images back to the people who sent in the water samples. Wow. And we call them water guardians. So we would like people to pick a water source, which could be a stream, river, well, anything which they feel some form of connection to. And so the idea is then to create this global network of blueprints, because some blueprints are corresponding with others. And we have seen that too. So there are some places on this planet, and they don't have to be even in the same country, but some places share almost an identical blueprint.
Interesting.
So
it's like water quantum entanglement in a way.
Yeah, it is really. It's like a matrix of water. It's absolutely amazing. And so to fast forward this, so we need people to help. And the money which we accumulate from the sale of the kits will go straight into our research, but also we are funding people like the Ejido La Flor community, who are actually actively fighting back and trying to preserve the lagoon in their area, because unfortunately a lot of corruption we know is happening around the world, especially when it comes to water. So to preserve the waters and stop these corrupt companies to come and take these pristine waters and turn it into some horrible liquid, we have decided to get active because we can all talk about it forever, but we need to start somewhere. And I think the most important point for me and for many other people is to preserve the water, because we do have only very limited water resources which are structured or living water. So the last thing we need is further pollution of our oceans or any water source. And we need to rekindle that relationship we have with water. And it will not only heal the water, it will heal us too. And it can connect us all in this beautiful network. We can all talk to each other. We can exchange information. People will use the blueprint to meditate, to use the blueprint to take their drinking water and charge it with the blueprint. There's all sorts of beautiful things you can do, which are very beneficial to you if you have that blueprint.
Well, that sounds amazing. I'm very interested in that myself. I want everybody to go and check that out. That's going to be incredible to see that, to see the blueprint and see what you're internalizing, because we have so much water in us that I think it's like 92%, 93% water. It's mind blowing. So we have to charge that. Now, can people take things like sigils, like angel sigils or crystals, and put them in a drinking water tank, and that would start to affect the blueprints?
If they have already the blueprint from the water, or they don't have to do really anything. The water is charged up from the blueprint itself.
Got it.
Because water is really communicating that way. And we have seen that in an experiment, which I don't like to call it experiment. Let's call it communication.
Sure.
And we had two different water sources. One we have taken from Lake Chapala, which is here in Mexico. And the water is very polluted in such a way, which is a real shame, because it has such an importance to the indigenous people surrounding the area. And it has been completely polluted by pesticides, by all sorts of different poisons and toxins, plus raw sewage, which has been pumped in constantly. And it is on the end of a river system, which consists of 3 rivers, actually. And so it's like catching all the toxins and everything from these river systems too. So we have spoken to a lot of people in Chapala who are very much aware of it. And of late, they had an increase in sulfur within their water, which suggests that something is going on and is some form of imbalance happening there, which is upsetting perhaps the volcano, which is supposed to be dormant. So I think we need to really start to listen to the waters and try to avoid the worst case scenario. Not only that we're running out of water at some point, but also that we are protecting the waters and its energies, because it really reflects on us humans as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, we need that to be intact energetically.
Yeah, it's exactly. So that's why the network is also there to protect the water sources. And if you have a network consisting of however many people around the globe, we can actually pressurize certain companies and governments to say, hey, this just happened with this water. So we're all very much aware of it. And what are you doing against it right now? So we can increase the pressure and try to stop corrupt companies in just dumping their toxins into the water, which is happening all over the world. So, but coming back to Lake Chapala, so we took the blueprint of Lake Chapala, and it was actually quite sad to see that it was very, very dark gray. Only in the center, there was a tiny glimpse of beautiful coloration, it was almost like a cry for help. And so what I did is I took a different water, which was nearby, which was actually a good water source and known to be healing water. So we took the blueprint of this healing water, and you could see instantaneously, there was a huge difference. And then I had the idea to put the two petri dishes with another sample next to each other of the 2 water sources. And I asked the water, who was the healing water, if it can help the other water. And then something incredible happened, and it gives me goosebumps still all over. We usually have always from the healing water the most beautiful colors, and it's quite consistent. We always take numerous samples. And when I asked the question, the next blueprint I took, it was blank. It was completely blank, like a white sheet. And the water did reset itself to help the other water. I never seen that before. I mean, that is just absolutely incredible.
So were the two blueprints then balanced in that whiteness?
The left side, which was the healing water, communicated with the right petri dish, which was the water from Lake Chapala.
Right.
So what happened is that the healing water reset itself. It just decided, okay, I just do something now. And it reset itself to a certain point. We're not quite sure what it is at this point, but it was very visible. And we repeated it. It happened 4 times. We asked the same questions. It happened the same way. It reset itself. It was a white sheet.
Interesting.
And then what we did is we introduced the frequencies to each other by using the blueprint, which was originally from the healing spring. And then we took another sample of the sample which we had, which we treated with the blueprint of the healing water. And the next image was completely different. So the grayness completely disappeared. The water was lively again. There were a lot more colors visible. And we repeated that 4 times. And by the 4th time, we could see that the water was almost in pristine condition. Now, you have, yes, exactly. So now you have to tell me that there is definitely a possibility here to get waters to communicate to each other to fix itself. That's what it looks like to me. And I don't know how it's possible. I don't know if it is possible on a larger scale. We haven't tried that yet. But that's why I wanted to have the water network instantly. I thought, okay, we need to get this on the ground, because if that is the case, we can really do a lot of healing with the water blueprints.
Yes, you could change the water of the world, actually, if you do it to scale, if you scale it up. It seems like when the water's separated, just like humans, now you think about source consciousness and people saying we have the divine spark and we're this individuation of source. Let's say water works in that same way. It's a group consciousness, but maybe in its separation, it takes on some form of individual consciousness, which then interfaces with the other individual consciousnesses. But at the end of the day, it's all that water trying to get back to that highest state. That's incredible.
Yeah. Yes. So I do know also that if you have water plasma is something we are, of course, investigating a lot because of the company I have, Aquan. So because many people who use our water notice the first thing is that they say, oh, it's a lot thicker than normal water. And I said, yes, that's because we managed actually the first 2 steps of water plasma creation. So, and that's why this technology is groundbreaking, and it's extremely important for our future. I also know that many of the people who are following UFO activity and who are really into quantum energies and all these kind of things. So they say that water plasma is actually most likely to be the fuel for the future. And most likely, I think if people talk from medbeds and all these kind of things, I think that water is definitely in form of plasma a very good candidate for it.
That's mind-blowing. And it's so abundant if we can transfer that. Seawater, salt water, poisoned water, we clean it, we repair it energetically, and then you can even take it to the next step as plasma water. That's mind-blowing. Now, why is this just being rediscovered now? I have a feeling you think ancient cultures knew about this completely, but why is this coming back now? Is it part of our evolution, our ascension to rediscover these old ancient knowledge and techniques?
Yeah, absolutely. I totally believe that. When the whole movement started with the water, we were pretty much right on time because with Aquan, I could see that happening. I could see that by researching the water over the last 14 years, I could see a change. And personally also, I got really close to water, and I was seeing it as, because water is creation as well, of course. And so I think that the ancient blueprint of creation is also still stored in our ancient waters, like the lagoon here in Bacala, for example. So once we have established a communication through sound and visual, which we are almost there, I think we have endless possibilities to really understand who we are as well. And that will change a lot. And I think it is a calling from the water, because I think we are at that point where we really have to make a decision if we're going to continue to destroy our planet or if we are trying to fix it. And I think it's time also for us to understand that our lives needs to be maybe a little bit more mindful when it comes to some things. And so I have great hope, and I know that water is reaching out to us, and I think it's time to listen.
Wow, that's so powerful. That consciousness, it's alive. It wants to help us evolve and get to that next step. It's all part of our story. It's playing a role. Yeah. That's incredible. But then that makes me think that with this cosmic information coming from space, blueprinting on the water, that there are forces that are trying to block that. The same opposing forces that are plugging these wells, these sacred wells in other places. In Egypt, there's several places that are just energetically powerful that are totally blocked off. And that opposing force doesn't want us to get that. So perhaps these satellites and other things, people say chemtrails, there are other things that are blocking the sunlight, keeping the blueprint from coming in.
Yes, you're very right. And one of the biggest obstacles we have is, of course, our technology, which is connected to our communication systems. It's 5G.
Right.
And so, of course, these new frequencies have an incredible impact on waters and on us as well. So much they try and tell us that it's not harmful to us. Well, I still work as a doctor from time to time, and I still hold some of my old patients, and I'm not letting them go yet. So, but we had a lot of people in Cornwall and in the UK in general who had of late a lot of strange rashes on their skin. They have inside their ear channel, they have almost like burns of the soft tissue and inside their nose. So, and this, in my opinion, is a sign of radiation poisoning. So, and I think that more and more people are going to suffer from it. Many people have very extreme mood swings, which also could be a result of that. I mean, there's a whole palette of things. And if you have, of course, events like the solar maximum charging up these energies as frequencies as well, and we are not protected in that sense, then it can cause quite a lot of havoc, you know, in not just within ourselves, but also animals. We had a lot of, in the beginning, when they did all the testing for the 5G, in many countries, birds just falling out of the sky, and there was a lot of fish dying. We had this situation about a year or two, maybe now ago, in England, especially in Cornwall, where the seabirds, and I put it down to bird flu. But my vet, who is actually bird expert, she's a friend of mine, and she said, "There's no bird flu. This is rubbish because this is only affecting the seabirds. In bird flu, that doesn't happen."
Right. The ones that rely on magnetism.
Yes, and they are close to the ocean, and of course, through the water, these kind of frequencies would be amplified. So there's a lot of cover up in this sense. But as I said, we try to be on the positive side, and we know that we can change things, and we have to start somewhere. And I think to change our relationship with water is a huge step forward. And then once we are connected to water again, and I think they're very much aware of it. Just an example, there are some texts dating back just about 7,000 years describing that some of the kings in Sumeria, so they would have replacements of themselves whenever there was a solar event, an eclipse happening.
Okay.
Because in the momentum of the eclipse, what happens in the ionosphere, for example, is that the ions would separate much more than they are usually, and they would space out. So in that moment, so the ancient script was talking about humanity would have a window opportunity then to connect to the cosmos again. And that would give them the realization that they shouldn't be controlled. So they would be very difficult to control, and very often there would be the kings or the queens would be the target of these kind of uproars.
Yes, of course.
And that's why they had these replacements of the king and the queen, so they could go into safety, and they would come back sometimes months later to be sure that these effects would not affect the people anymore. So that's a fact. That is a script which I have published over my last talks, and I've shown it when I was having the talks, and people were very surprised about it. But that's why with the last eclipse we had in April, the whole royalty, for example, in England was disappearing. So they were not in their official position anymore, so they would be in hiding. And there was a lot of problems in that time surrounding the royal family in England. And so it was very obvious. And it happened in other countries as well, so I've been told. So yeah, it's very interesting.
So they're just aware of that greater energy that affects people internally and makes them make decisions like perhaps having an uprising. Wow, that's so huge. And just to touch on the 5G aspect again for our listeners, the microwave radiation, it affects water. I mean, literally, that's how microwave ovens work. I mean, so this information is, you could say, programming our water molecules. What are some things that people can do to protect themselves, to protect their water integrity and their own personal water blueprint?
In terms of 5G,
and also in general,
it's a difficult. In general, yes, it's a difficult one because, of course, if you are next to a tower, and I know that myself because I stayed outside San Miguel de Allende and in Alcocer. So, and unfortunately, next to the house there was a massive tower, 5G tower. And I thought, okay, well, I'll just see how I get on with that one. And soon as I lived there, I had the most horrendous headaches and palpitations, which I never had. My heart rate was all over the place, and I thought, no, I can't stay here. So, and there are things you can do to protect yourself. That is to have some form of Faraday cage. You know, you can build that to protect yourself, but it's quite a lot of hassle to do that. Some people do. But the best way of dealing with it is to be sure that you expose yourself or to go into nature and really get rid of the radiation. One area where this 5G can't really touch you is the woodland.
Right.
So especially when you happen to be somewhere where there's a woodland consisting of pine trees, because pine trees have a specific makeup and the 5G cannot go through these through the needles, for example. And the same with trees. And that's why when the whole 5G thing started to happen, they would cut down masses and masses of trees because they would be obstructing the 5G signal. So we know that we are safe in the forest. So seek the shelter of the forest as much as you can. Go for a walk, take your family. Just don't be fearful. Just try to cleanse your body from this energy. And we're quite able to do that because we can communicate with all the water molecules within us, and we can reset it at all times.
I was going to ask you about that. So people can program their own internal water blueprint through meditation, through visualization, focusing positive energy into those molecules mentally.
Yeah, absolutely. That is very possible. Our mind is extremely powerful.
Of course.
And,
yes.
And we can, yes. So we are able to send these beautiful energies of good intention through our body, and we can literally reset our body that way. That's why we are able to self-heal. And that was something which was partially the driving force behind Aquan, the water which we developed, because the myrrh has this incredible correspondence with our GABA receptors in our brain. And these ones are usually very compromised by just taking, for example, one paracetamol. You are completely shutting down the ability of self-healing. So it will take a little while for you to reset, and then you can access this area again. But many people are on constant medications, so it's very difficult for them to induce this self-healing program, which is all within us. And so one thing which we can do is get sure that the GABA receptors are switched on, and myrrh has exactly that tool. So myrrh is switching on especially that area where we then can access self-healing again.
Which again is in the Aquan water, which is available on your website.
Yes, yeah, exactly. So that was something which people noticed straight away. They said, oh my God, I have so much clarity. They felt so different. Many have incredible dreams for the first few days when they're taking it. And some people say, oh, it showed me some situation I totally forgotten, and it was actually bothering me for a long time. So it's kind of getting sure that your energetic field is going into a form of homeostasis, if you like.
Are you still there, Alex? Oh, here he comes back. Yeah, I lost you there.
I'm here, yes. You know, just when we're talking about water, it's the most horrendous rain pouring down. There is a standing joke whenever I go to water, some water, and I usually go for a swim, and then I collect the water that way. And
and he's back.
I'm back again. Yes, you should see the rain which is coming down here. It's like out of buckets. It's incredible just now. Wow. So I hope it's holding.
I feel grateful that we had such a long interview that we've had. Well, look, let's tell people about your water and where to find you. You are available at Aquan, AQUAN.co.uk. And there's the water that's there, and people can essentially reset their water pattern and then create almost a therapy around the water.
Yes, that's right. That's correct. Yeah. People use it for physical issues, but also to enhance their spiritual ability, if you like.
Interesting. Oh, I can't wait to try it. I'm literally, as soon as we're done with this, I'm going to go order some. But tell us about the Aquan Explorers, because you take people to these megalithic sites. Tell us about this.
Yeah, so the Aquan Explorers is happening pretty much every single month. So we have a form on our website. You can fill it out. We have some restrictions.
See if he comes back. Well, it looks like we lost Dr. Alex Ling. His internet connection went down because of the incredible amount of water, the pouring rain where he was in Mexico. But the Aquan Explorers, again, he leads people every month. Check that out. Aquan.co.uk. We had an incredible conversation with Dr. Alex Ling. It was so good. Think about what he's saying with the living water. Think about what he's saying with the frankincense, the myrrh, the monoatomic gold, which I've heard some people think that is the main component to the manna of the Bible, monoatomic gold. So I can say that this has never happened before. He got swallowed by the water, the rains of Mexico. He got swallowed. Something happened. He's fine, people. Just kidding. But I want to thank Dr. Alex Ling for participating all the way up until the end. What an incredible episode, people. And we will see you next week. Midnight on Earth.